Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much on behalf of the board chair. If I may, thank you very much for the opportunity to share some ideas. Remember, we're going to share some ideas. We're sitting board chair with a lot of intellectuals here. So our job is just to share some ideas. I must say, Professor, looking at the papers that were presented, I was highly impressed, Jay. And going to international conferences, you'll be amazed at the absolute nonsense people actually publish. And I trust, Jay, looking at the quality of the papers, I'm very proud to be a South African. So first and foremost, well done to all of you that actually presented and the quality of the papers. If we take it from 5 years ago, when we were starting talking about the 4IR, when we started talking about AI, and even our president thought, who's these cuckoo's people now with artificial intelligence, robots, and all this funnies. So just from the outset, well done to each one of you. And I think, Chair, in terms of your leadership at NAMISA indicating why research is important, we can see, Prof, why it is really important, because everything starts with research. Because if we knew the answers, we don't need to do research. And that's what I always keep telling students. If you know the answer, why are you doing it then? So rather go and research, and then we'll find out as we go on. So give me a half an hour, 30 minutes, just to share some ideas, the way that we see as futurists. And I'm very blessed, Mr. Martin, that we have another futurist amongst us. And welcome to you. And I'm so glad to see young futurists coming through in this country. We need people like you. So forget this idea you're going to immigrate and follow the other people. Don't do it. All right. You must probably found yourself questioning if, or more likely when, technology will change how you work and when you work. If it feels to you like we're currently living in a new world with a new version of the future, then we envisage some 2 to 3 years ago, Chair, when we had it in Boksburg, that last NAMISA conference. You're not alone. And I think you must probably be right, ladies and gentlemen. To put it mildly, many things have changed since January 2020. And those changes are propelling us forward to new versions of the future. And that's what makes studying the future so interesting, Professor. The future is constantly evolving, ladies and gentlemen. We can't have certainty about it until we actually get there. In the course of our 2-year experience with COVID, one thing we've learned, ladies and gentlemen, or hopefully in the process of learning, is that there is no risk-free path to the future. Our journey is one of risk mitigation, not risk elimination. According to a Canadian psychologist and best-selling author, Jordan Peterson, there's no risk-free path forward, ladies and gentlemen. There's only one risk or another. Pick your poison. Let the choice of life often offer it to you. So pick your poison. It's how you mitigate it. In addition to granting us a lesson about minimizing and balancing that risk, COVID has triggered some unintended or at least unforeseen circumstances and consequences. And the list is actually growing. You can attribute some of the pandemic itself, and in other cases, our actions to minimize the impact of the pandemic, but it's unexpectedly produced other areas of risk and hardship as we currently experience. With that said, I will share some of the most significant unintended consequences that from COVID that are defining our path of the future of work as we know it and how we as futurists envision it. But what we've currently experienced, ladies and gentlemen, as we know it, that the future actually arriving faster than before. 2 years ago, where COVID started, 2 years ago, it's 2 years down the line. The changes that we'll experience within the 4th industrial revolution, ladies and gentlemen, will be more so felt than the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd industrial revolution combined. The changes we'll experience within the 4IR will be more so felt than the changes we felt in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd industrial revolution together. But as John Scully indicated, the future belongs to those who see the possibilities long before they become obvious. Because it's easy to call it. I've called it when it actually happened. But to forecast it And as Mr. Martin will tell you, to forecast and to have a correct prognosis, it is very difficult to do. Very, very difficult to do. So when we talk about in March 2020, when we did the scenarios for COVID, we as futurists forecasted 4 waves. And backcast 2 years ago, ladies and gentlemen, forecasting 4 waves when we just experienced it. It's not an easy thing to do. So it's very important that we actually see those possibilities long before they became obvious. And we as futurists forecasted that the COVID-19 were more similar like the 1957, 1958 Asian flu that started in Hong Kong in any case. So we had to look and backcast and those kind of things. The only thing we did get wrong is we thought the second wave was going to be the biggest. However, it was the third wave that was the biggest. And we scratched heads and we collaborated with the World Future Studies Federation. And the one argument came through, but we never actually traveled like we traveled back in the time in 1957, 56, 57. So traveling around the world for business, etc., made that the third wave was actually the best wave. So as futurists, we forecasted and we shared some ideas early on this morning. We should see a 50% reduction in COVID for this year, and hopefully the last elimination April, May of next year. But ladies and gentlemen, we have to think about the future now, because the consequences of thinking about the future now, we have to determine the possibilities, the probabilities, the preferabilities, and what are the wild cards, the unforeseen things that we didn't see how it's going to change the industry. And a very good example of the wild card is, ladies and gentlemen, if you remember the 9/11, when those 2 airplanes entered those 2 buildings, it changed the way we traveled for life. Am I right? Very frustrating. In the olden days, chup chup, you're on the airplane. Now it's a security scan, it's a checking before the time, a booking in before the time. If you travel internationally, they know exactly, the intelligence agencies, who you are, what you are, they know your records and all that type of stuff. Especially an ambassador will tell you when you go to China. I'm going to try and explain it simple enough, because Einstein indicated when we talk about the future of work, if you can't explain it simple enough, we most probably don't understand it simple enough. So I apologize now for not sounding like an academic and those kind of things. So I'm going to try and explain it as simple enough, which brings us within the 4th Industrial Revolution, ladies and gentlemen. We should never forget the fact that the future of work is within an industry. Why should we create future of work for yesterday's future? We need to cater for the work that's actually coming up, because in the next slides that I'm going to produce to you, you're going to see the changes that we're going to experience. So it's very important. So how do we define that 4IR, ladies and gentlemen? And this is also one of the definition at the, as part of the commission for Presidential Commission for 4IR. The 4th Industrial Revolution is the 4th major industrial era since the initial industrial revolution of the 18th century. It is characterized by the fusion of smart technologies that is blurring the lines between the physical, digital, and biological spheres, collectively referred as the cyber-physical systems that has a direct impact on smart business models. Now, the smart business models, ladies and gentlemen, is a critically very important component, because that incorporates the future of jobs as we know it. Because the smart business models, whether it's smart renewable energy, whether it's smart infrastructure, whether it's smart education, smart waste to energy, whatever part of business, you have to bring in the smartness of it. Hence again, to write a smart business model and a business plan that is bankable, hence again, bankable, is a very difficult thing to do. So you have to bring foresight in when actually doing it. And trust me, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to change our labor markets as we know it. So if we unpack this definition, ladies and gentlemen, it's a continuation of industrialization the world has seen over the past 200 years. And these smart technologies are quickly developing and merging, testing traditional means of economic growth and the future of work. Responses to technological change will determine the shape of economic progress through smart business models. And the 4IR presents a turning point, ladies and gentlemen, for human development. Because trust me, the human aspect will always be there. As a rapid pace of technological change tests social cohesion and demands bold policy responses in order to better foster innovation, develop sound economic policy, and prudently increases productivity within future of work. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen, the first industrial revolution took about 100 years. So did the second one. The third one took about 50 years. Most probably, the fourth one will not outlast 2035. So we don't have much space. We're already talking as futurists. Mr. Martin will tell you about the fifth industrial revolution. But let's forget about the fifth. We're currently living in the fourth industrial revolution. So those changes we can experience is very complex. And you'll see it on the right-hand side of this. The degree of complexity is just so much more that we can actually experience. And to further elaborate on the degree of complexity, we can actually see why the fourth industrial revolution is so much more complex and the direct impact that it actually has on smart business models. So if we look at the factors driving the 4IR, ladies and gentlemen, it's being driven by the systematic transformation. My apologies at the previous slide. No, systematic transformation of technology, information, and innovation on a global scale. And these four primary factors driving a stage of industrialization will actually change us in terms of four aspects. It's why the emerging catalytic technologies brings in place, machine learning, the speed of change that we were talking about, that we can experience with the 4IR, but it actually happens on a global scale. It's not just in South Africa. Sometimes people fight against it. I hope it's a boat. Sometimes people fight against it, but in true reality, ladies and gentlemen, it's actually happening all around the world. We're not unique. An ambassador will also tell you the same challenges we're sitting around with 204 countries around the globe, same issues. As a society, we're entering uncharted territory, and vast number of jobs will be replaced by machine intelligence and robots, and the increasing capabilities of AI and genetic engineering, ladies and gentlemen, have the potential to get beyond the control of the creators. So we have to take that in cognizance of the fact. But in true reality, ladies and gentlemen, throughout history, human jobs have always been affected by the modern history as we know it. It's made our lives easier. Every single industrial revolution made our lives easier. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, we have to get out of our comfort zones. It's very difficult, especially men. We don't like change, Professor, but we have to. We've got to get out of comfort zone, address the fear zones. We need to move into learning zones when we deal with the challenges and the problems, acquire those new skills so that we can make ourselves employable and move into that growth zone, as we know, where we find our purpose, live our dreams, set new goals, and conquer our objectives when it comes to the future of them. So it's very important, ladies and gentlemen, take yourself out of that comfort zone, familiarize yourself within what's actually happening with the future of jobs within the fourth industrial revolution. But very importantly, never forget the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Never forget that, because this is our guiding light, our North Star as we know it. At number 4, ladies and gentlemen, you cannot have a good job without good quality education. You cannot have it. We're the most unequal society in the world. That's the worst statistic you can actually have. Most unequal. Remember, you guys are elite. You guys sitting here with the PhDs. You are part of 0.05% of the world's population with PhDs. 0.05. You are elite, but we're the most unequal society. I work at local municipalities and districts, ladies and gentlemen, where 80% of our people live in poverty, near poverty, or extreme poverty. 80%. 20% has got matric and higher. 20% of the people, which is a staggering figure. And number 8, good jobs and economic growth, because they go hand in hand at the end of the day. Maslow's hierarchy has changed. Eh? It's changed. We cannot go without Wi-Fi. It's as simple as that. Our kids, Andias, doesn't exist. Andias. So the true reality is, ladies and gentlemen, in the future, anything and everything, including you and I, will be connected. A good example of it is China. You've got your normal identity document, but you also have your social identity document. Anything about you is connected. Trust me, in the future, you and I will also have our social identity documents as we know it, not just Facebook. All right, because as people of the screen, these young kids that we are preparing the future of work for, they don't accept our limitations. Am I correct? They don't. There's not Wi-Fi. I'm not going with the holiday. I'm not going where to go and visit. I'm not going there. And 1.5 million of these kids on screen are added to our global urban population every single day. We already talk about Generation Alpha. Thankfully, my granddaughter was born last year. Next year, it's her first birthday. She falls in this category, Generation Alpha. Those born between 2010 and 2025. So it's very important, ladies, they think differently. I think she was a week or two old. She was already watching the cartoons. And I mean, I think, my word, you know, they're just born with technology as they move forward. This is one of the 37, and Mr. Martin will reiterate, the future's wheel. It's one of 37. That's what making studying the future so difficult, because we've got 37 different research methodologies. And we make use of mixed methods to do a combination and come up with a true prognosis. Makes it incredibly difficult. But the true reality within the plurality of the 4IR, it consists of three things: artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and blockchain, ladies and gentlemen. And this is what the futures feel identified for us. Internet of everything, or Internet of anything and everything as we know it, it pushes us into the future. And AI pulls us into the future. But something with all this data, with all this information, with all the AI, everything is connected. Something needs to verify it. Remember, not just you and I are going to be connected. Buildings are going to connect. When it's driverless vehicles, all that stuff. What prevents that car driving into that vehicle or drive into you and I? It's called blockchain to verify that information. Something needs to verify that. And these three things becomes the plurality of it. So if AI is an intelligence exhibited by machines, AI systems seek to produce and respond to data in human-like ways. And I'm re-emphasizing that fact, like human-like ways. AI wants to become like you and I. Remember that. And global spending already, Prof Fusano, when we last spoke about it, I mean, it's now going to 67 billion in 2022. The figures are staggering, and it doubles every 2 years as we know it. And AI, ladies and gentlemen, will be everywhere and every single industry as we know it. You can pick your choose. AI will be there. And on top of it, the 10 uses of use of camps of AI, ladies and gentlemen, the top right, jobs and task automation. So we have to prepare ourselves for that. The big question always comes as us as futurists: when will AI overtake mankind's intelligence? In true reality, that term's called singularity. We shouldn't be worried about it, because at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, go and try play chess against a computer. I always lose, depending on the level that you actually have it, because it already knows it. AI is already overpowering mankind's intelligence. Hence again, when I say your IQ is not going to help you very much in the future, because ask Auntie Google or ask Auntie Siri, they will give it to you whatever you want. The Industrial Revolution was a 10 million person story, ladies and gentlemen. Artificial intelligence will become a 1 billion person story as we know it. And we're just actually at the beginning of it yet. It grows as we know it. So the second thing is Internet of Things, or Internet of Everything. And it's a platform of devices to communicate with the world around them and to integrate human, natural, and built with. So anything and everything, ladies and gentlemen, will be connected in the future. We can already see from last year, every single minute, everything that gets shared. It is mind-boggling how much information we actually get as we move forward. From Google to Twitter to TikTok, 167 million videos on TikTok are watched every single minute. Think about that data, ladies and gentlemen, that's on with the Internet of Things. And the blockchain, ladies and gentlemen, and I was very impressed to see there was a blockchain paper on healthcare, which made me smile from ear to ear, because very often, ladies and gentlemen, we forget where the role of blockchain is going to be in the future. So as futurists, myself and Mr. Martin will tell you, blockchain is incredibly important because it forms part, a massive part about verification of that information. A lot of people already indicate that blockchain in the financial services, the future of banks, when we consult with the banks, they are moving it. Even SARS went onto blockchain and those kind of things because of the crypto market. Crypto market, you could send money anywhere around the world. Trust me, I did the same thing. I can put it in South Africa. I can take it out in Greece and those kind of things, but nothing verified that information. There's where like all the revenue services around the world were hopping. In future, ladies and gentlemen, cryptos will form a big part of the world as we know it. The other aspect, ladies and gentlemen, within the 4IR is the role that 5G is going to play in our lives, as well as cloud. We already look, 4G was there in 2007 when the smartphones came out. Can you guys remember that? So we could, it was 4G, 100 megabytes per second in 2009. Remember the smartphones came out in 2007, Facebook and all this, LinkedIn, all this kind of aspects started around about the same period. So it's not that long ago. 5G, ladies and gentlemen, will produce 10 gigabytes per second, and it already started in 2020. I've seen it in Barcelona. I see how it runs out, how the future cities conferences and those kind of aspects. 5G is incredibly important, and it's going to assist our lives as we know it. And we're going to move from Web 2.0 to Web 3.0 through the blockchain, or what we call the Internet of Blockchains, to verify. Currently, it's argued that 50% of information that's out there is fake. Blockchain will stop that nonsense for us. So by 2020, there was an estimate of 50 billion edge devices, ladies and gentlemen. By 2025, 1 in 3 jobs will be done by software, robots, and smart machines as we know it. And those that know Amara's law with technology, we've underestimated it. We've truly underestimated the speed of change and the impact that will actually have it. And so many of those negative people indicated, you know, they've got 400 reasons why something has failed. Netflix didn't kill blockbusters. Ridiculous late fees contributed to it. Uber did not kill taxi and the car rental business. Limited taxi access and fare control contributed. Apple didn't kill the music industry being forced to buy full-time length albums. Airbnb didn't kill the hotel industry. Limited availability and pricing options made the hotels less attractive and added to new markets. When it came to Amazon, didn't kill other retailers. Bad customer service, free shipping, and experience did it. And the people said this will not work. Even 2 years ago. Bitcoin won't work. Uber won't work. Netflix won't work. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen, even when I had to go and talk about DSTV, and I presented to the commission, I said to him, your business will not be here in 2030. Look where Netflix is at the moment. Look where Netflix is at the moment. So let's look at some forecasts for next 8 to 10 years, ladies and gentlemen. Rule of thumb, 60% of the jobs towards 2030 haven't actually even been invented yet with all these changes. By 2030, basic computer programming will be a core skill in every single job as we know it. Towards 2030, if current trends persist, more than half of the nearly 2 billion youth worldwide will not have the skills needed for the jobs of the future. Now, remember, 2030 will be 8 billion people on Earth. Doesn't mean to say it only affects a quarter of people. More like 50% of people will get affected. Towards 2030, the world's largest internet company will most probably be in the online education business. And it will be from either India or China as we know it. Remember, Prof Sana, 2 years ago when we mentioned it, people thought, hey, these futurists are crazy. By 2030, students will learning more from robot teachers 10 times faster than of today. They already do. And it starts with that cartoons that they're watching. By 2030, and I'm very popular with vice chancellors, that 50% of traditional universities will not be there by 2030. They won't be there. And you can already see the markets changing, ladies and gentlemen, because micro-training colleges are popping up everywhere. And trust me, the learning management systems outpaces our traditional university ones, including the MISA chair. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to change the way we're going to train and retrain our people. So in future, it's all about adaptive learning technologies and electronic learning as we know it. The future of training and teaching, ladies and gentlemen, because we need to retrain people. It's about connectedness, collaboration, and co-creation. And anywhere, anytime learning. Think about it. Whenever you want to find out about something, you'll find a free course somewhere on the net. But you'll get your accreditation CEO only once you finish it. And I must say, our CEO is actually a master on that. Future jobs, ladies and gentlemen, science, technology, engineering, and maths, 75% of jobs, you will still need that. So it's very important that we stick to the basics as well. Because of current 15-year-olds, 42% are not proficient in maths. 35% are not proficient with science, and 35% are not proficient with technology. But we've got ourselves to blame for the technology. Because if you work in the rural areas and the poorest of the poor, those poor kids haven't even seen a cartoon yet. Hence again, one of my passions is the early childhood developmental centers. And I find a lot of funding internationally and bringing these early childhood development centers. But the critical stage for child's development, ladies and gentlemen, is in the first 3 years. First 3 years. That's where you set them up for life. So in terms of how we're going to train and retrain our people, it's from physical to digital as we know it. And we have to question the role of AI in education. We have to, because AI makes it so much faster and so much more incorporated in terms of teaching. And trust me, ladies and gentlemen, training or retraining all around the world will change. Classroom of the future, whether you train somebody from a school or at university or train them to retrain them to prepare them for future jobs, it's going to be a community effort. And trust me, that role of the educator, as we know at Prof Sana, is going to change. We're just going to be there for monitoring and controlling, as we know it. And as Einstein indicated, education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. Remember, Einstein never finished school. And he always argued, my IQ, I apply where my interests are. I'm not here to reason facts or memorize. And if you really think about it, why as a futurist, I keep saying, your IQ is not going to help you anything in the future because of AI and data that's at your disposal. It's more the actual softer figures that's going to, because ladies and gentlemen, already robots operate unsupervised in 30 days without interruption, and offshore manufacturing low cost can save up to 65% on the labor costs, and replacing human workers with robots saves up to 90%. So how do we mitigate that? 600,000 robots operate on us, on our bodies already, every single year. An IBM Super Watson computer, if you want to compare your IQ versus AI, they can read 1 million textbooks and make a prognosis and a diagnosis within 3 seconds. Trust me, you can speed read as much as you can, you're not going to come close. It's changing our roles, ladies and gentlemen. Already by this year, 133 million emerging roles is changing. And you can name it, data analyst, AI, software, big data specialist, digital transformation, new technology already, and you can already see the jobs in declining. By 2025, ladies and gentlemen, it's slight changing. It starts bringing with the analytical thinking and innovation, complex problem solving, critical thinking and analysis, all the way to reasoning, problem solving, and idealization. And 2030, ladies and gentlemen, is a very big change for us towards 2030, because there it becomes judgment and decision making. There is a fluency of ideas, active learning strategies. Think about it, learning strategies. Think about those changes towards, it's not that far off, ladies and gentlemen. Remember 2010 Soccer World Cup? Remember that happy days we used to have? That's like 12 years ago. This is only 8 years from now that we're talking about. So it's going to happen in our lifetime. And at number 10, monitoring. What we're going to do, Professor, we're just going to monitor. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to the rate of automation, 2018, which is only 4 years ago, 3 years ago, basically 25%, 29% of work were done by machines. 2022 is already 42%. By 2025, 52% of work will be done by machines. Think about how it's going to change our role. So let's look at the future of work and what the implications is. One thing is very important, ladies and gentlemen, we must never assume. Worst thing, and those that are psychologists, never assume things. So don't interpret and assume things, because that's one of the 4 principles of psychology, and they must do. The future of work is neither linear or fixed. There's no one future of work, but a range of possible futures, because we're possible, preferable, plausible, and wildcards that plays a role. It cannot be predicted. We're not Shangomas. We can't give you those Powerball numbers. And there's a projection of a current ideas of images, change how we think about the future, and we change at the present. And it's in the here and the now how we actually prepare for that future. A key takeaway, ladies and gentlemen, is that forward-thinking businesses are putting a strong emphasis on workplace redesign and investing in new technologies to prepare the future of work. As businesses grapple to understand these changes, it's becoming increasingly clear that tomorrow's workplace will be defined by the foundational forces as we know it. And the big question always, ladies and gentlemen, and I presented it 2 years ago at the UNAMISA conference, and the big question is always asked by us as futurists, will automation steal my job? Because we are mankind, we're normal, we feel like that. Credible research indicates that around 50% of jobs, so our jobs will be automated as we know it. And if we look at the editors, 6% of high risk, firefighters 17%, actors 37% of high risk, 40% of healthcare practitioners, economists, very sadly for myself, Professor Anna, 43%, commercial pilots 55%, machine operators 65% of high risk, word pressing typists 81%, real estate agents 86%, technical writers 89%, retail salespeople 92%, accountants and auditors 92%. High risk. High risk, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, it's very important when we talk about the workplace and the workforce transformation. Globalization of businesses has resulted in a diverse and distributed workforce. The true impact in the future will come from dynamic teams as we know it. In other words, full-time and part-time employees, remote workers, freelancers, gig economy workers, and crowdsourcing. And the kids, these young kids of the screen already indicate 91% of them say technology influences their life's choices. Technology. So first, the technology is going to determine what they actually want to do in the future of their lives. 51% will be freelancing. These are the entrepreneurial guys that actually will do the freelancing. 50%. So in true reality, entrepreneurship in South Africa, 2% of our population are entrepreneurs. But in future, we see a very exciting figure because these kids are already thinking they want to start their own businesses. 80% want to work with cutting edge technology, not like the older generation. 20% will work with technology, especially my age people, and 90% prefer to choose their work location. So they'll choose where they work. I'm already finding the kids working internationally from South Africa. I'm already finding the foreigners moving to certain areas like Cape St. Francis, Port Shepstone, those and they're setting up shop. They're setting up shop. They've got the UK email addresses, they're on the platform, and they're doing their businesses already. People thinking they're sitting in the UK, meanwhile they're sitting on the beach while they're busy working. 65% of children in primary schools today will work in jobs that doesn't even exist yet. So it's very important, ladies and gentlemen, that we take cognizance of those trends. It's very important as we move forward. For the first time, we're also seeing 5 generations of workers coexist in the workplace, which means businesses will be agile and ready to accommodate newer ways of working while also ensuring harmony among generational factions in a diverse and varied workforce. Tomorrow's workforce will include a mix of both on and off balance sheet talent with a strong emergence of on-demand work, or what we call the so-called Uberization of the workforce. 5 generations working together. So it's very important, ladies and gentlemen, the static work schedules will become a thing of the past, not only for information workers, but also for frontline end and shift workers and many other job titles across many, many industries as we know it. For many, the delineation of work and personal life will actually completely fade. And that's a scary thought. I remember the last time, I think, Chair, we were talking about this work-life balance. And I haven't brought the slide in, but when we look at the working hours from 1914 up to 2021, for the first time ever, and it's goes down and down. But since the platform economy has actually now started shooting up, we're actually working more hours. People think you sit at home, but you're actually working more. So in true reality, ladies and gentlemen, remote working, co-working spaces, and hot desking are increasingly becoming a commonplace globally. As an outcome of the gig economy, work will become a series of activities allowing businesses to essentially pull human resources and specialist demand from anywhere around the world. We'll see a core full-time employees performing fixed functions supported by external consultants and on-demand freelancers working alongside, not just for long-term projects, but also for the short-term activities and tasks. In some cases, on-demand talent that companies leverage through crowdsourcing and other means will become more prevalent than in-house resources. Also, important to understand the full-time impact of artificial intelligence as we know it, which will acquire a massive skill set disruption and compel business to retrain and reskill workers. Hence again, ladies and gentlemen, that model of the micro-training colleges coming to life is for the reskilling. And ladies and gentlemen, how we saw the employee of the past and the future is going to change completely as we know it. And it's these youngsters. But for those that knows that 70% of the brain is what we don't know, we don't know. For the first time ever, emotional intelligence becomes a critical core skill. Emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence, foresight intelligence, and cultural intelligence. That's 70% of the brain, what we don't know, we don't know. So when they actually evaluate you for specific projects and those kind of things, remember EQ and remember SQ, but also don't forget foresight intelligence, FQ, and cultural intelligence. So the office of the future, ladies and gentlemen, the multi-purpose, multi-dimensional office featuring shared workspaces, hot desking and hoteling is actually here. In other words, you'll be able to sleep over at work, depending of your, what's the name. It's already happening in China, Japan, and most of the Eastern countries, when guys actually come from the rural areas, they come and hoteling while they're actually working, because the employer says they actually spend more time working, as we know it. And communal, flexible, collaborative, and progressive workspaces, which are futuristic in design and environmentally sustainable, will become the norm. And we can expect, ladies and gentlemen, to have shared workspaces. One size doesn't fit all, and open offices are actually here to stay. And your choice is already, and if you look at the Nordic countries, they have 4 days working weeks already. And the trend's going to become more and more and more. Therefore, the bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, significant disruption is coming. Accelerated connectivity, my apologies, a new workforce and a cognitive tools will change our workday as we know it. And businesses will need to transform existing facilities and give services with a focus on people and performance. Just as product innovation has been a key differentiator for business growth, workplace innovation and redesign will become a critical success factor as we know it. Towards 2030, ladies and gentlemen, and final thoughts, 2 billion jobs will not be here. That's currently on the world market. But the positive thought about it is that there will be more job opportunities. But what we know is currently is the way we work at the moment is going to change in the future. Start getting ready for it. Because at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, we shouldn't be like the cell phone that sits where the tape screams at them, the telephone screams at them, because everything is in a nutshell in our cell phones. And trust me, ladies and gentlemen, your future cell phone will be a drone. So messages for the leader, and in summary, ladies and gentlemen, it isn't some far futures anymore, guys. You know, with this changes we can experience. It's not about some far future. We've got time to think about it. There's no time to think about it. It's how we react in the time of now. And there are no regrets and bets. The future isn't a fixed destination. We agree. But plan for a dynamic rather than a static future. You'll need to recognize multiple and evolving scenarios as we know it. Make no regrets moves that work with most scenarios, but you'll need to make some bets too as we move forward. And a final thought, ladies and gentlemen, if we apply 4R, the new game will be to find the fastest way to teach and retrain our people, because the people factor will never be eliminated as we know it. Just a final thought. Our mantra as futurists is to create hope. The one thing I keep clinging on for our country, and this was credible research done by the BBC. If we can just have every single child in South Africa up to the age of 15 with a basic education, we'll have the second highest GDP growth in the world. It will be between 7 and 9%, ladies and gentlemen. So whatever you as educators do, whatever you as future leaders do, trust me, make sure that every single child is educated up to the age of 15. Please, because that will ensure our 7 to 9% GDP growth that our country needs. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, we've got to look at the world now, current focus. We've got to look at the world future and a future focus. And remember, that shift changes. Thank you very much.